In the shadowed corners of Westeros, there was no warrior more dangerous than a man who fought with whispers, chaos, and coin. Petyr Baelish, better known as Littlefinger, was not born to greatness. He was born in a minor house, with no army, no ancient name, no dragon legacy, and no place at the high table. And yet, for a moment in time, he held more power than any knight or king. How did he do it? The answer lies not in swords or strategy maps, but in psychology, ambition, and manipulation. This is the logical breakdown of how Littlefinger played the Game of Thrones. Better than most in where he miscalculated fatally? Baelish understood one principle better than anyone else. Power is perception. He knew that in a world built on names and titles, the real movers were the ones behind the curtain. He didn't crave the Iron Throne because he wanted to sit on it. He wanted to control it, whisper into it, bend it. To do that, he didn't need strength. He needed information. Littlefinger was the original surveillance machine of Westeros. Its network of spies, informants, and couriers turned every rumor into currency. This currency he spent wisely. Unlike Varys, who used knowledge to protect the realm, Baelish weaponized it to climb. Every secret he held became leverage. Every noble he advised became a piece on his mental chessboard. But his genius wasn't just in information, it was in emotional manipulation. He didn't just know what people wanted, he knew what they feared. When Jon Arryn died mysteriously at the start of the series, it set off the entire War of the Five Kings. What most don't realize is that Baelish caused it all. He orchestrated Jon Arryn's death and framed the Lannisters, knowing it would create paranoia, chaos, and mistrust. He wasn't playing for a side, he was creating sides. In chaos, men lose their footing. But Baelish stood tall, like a man who built the storm and wore a coat. His next move was personal. Petyr loved Catelyn Stark, but she never returned that love. Still, he used that attachment to forge a connection to House Stark. When Catelyn married Ned, Petyr swallowed his bitterness and waited. Decades later, he used Sansa Stark as a proxy for the love he could never get from Catelyn. But this wasn't romance, it was strategy cloaked in sentiment. He saved Sansa from King's Landing, not out of compassion, but to mold her into a tool, someone with Stark blood whom he could position in the north. He married her off to Ramsay Bolton to consolidate power, an act that revealed the cold logic beneath his mask. Even the people he claimed to love were pieces on his board. One of Littlefinger's most brilliant moves was his role in pushing Lysa Arryn to murder her husband. Jon Arryn, it removed a loyal man from the kingdom and allowed Baelish to insert himself as Lord Protector of the Vale. Again, he didn't raise an army, he married a widow. With Lysa dead, he controlled the Eyrie, one of the most defensible locations in Westeros. In less than a decade, a man born without land, title, or soldiers now controlled the key to the Vale, had influence in the north through Sansa, and maintained deep connections in King's Landing. His empire was built not on stone but secrets. So where did it all go wrong? The fatal flaw in Littlefinger's plan wasn't a strategic misstep, it was overconfidence in his psychological grip over others. Baelish believed that because he could read and manipulate most people, he could always stay one step ahead. But he underestimated two things: genuine intelligence, not driven by self-interest, and the power of collective memory. Sansa Stark had changed. She had learned manipulation not from Baelish, but from Cersei and Ramsay. She saw firsthand how men use power and how they fall. Littlefinger believed Sansa was still under his control, but she had developed her own political instincts, and more importantly, she had developed trust in her family, especially in Bran Stark. Bran was the X-factor Littlefinger never accounted for. As the three-eyed raven, Bran had access to truths that no spy could uncover. No whisper, no lie, no forged letter could survive his gaze. When Baelish tried to sow discord between Arya and Sansa, he used an old trick: forge division, escalate tension, then offer to be the savior. It had worked before, but this time it failed. Sansa called his bluff in the presence of witnesses. His silence, for the first time, was not a weapon, it was his doom. Logically, this was the breaking point of Baelish's entire game theory. He built his empire, assuming no one could verify the past. He relied on secrets staying hidden. When someone existed who could see everything, his model collapsed. His manipulation techniques were designed for linear minds. He never accounted for supernatural oversight. It's like playing poker when someone knows every card in your hand and every bluff you've ever made. He was a master in a world of blind kings, but Bran could see. Another fatal error was misjudging loyalty as weakness. Baelish saw morality as a flaw, something to exploit. He believed that people acting out of honor were predictable and easy to play. But he failed to understand that honor, when combined with intelligence, becomes an unbreakable wall. Ned Stark was too moral, and it got him killed. But Sansa, Arya, and Bran had learned to blend morality with pragmatism. They weren't playing Baelish's game anymore. They had invented a new one. What's perhaps most tragic and fascinating is that Baelish might have won if he had stopped. If he had held the veil, protected Sansa, and built quiet influence, he might have survived. But like Icarus flying too close to the sun, his ambition burned through his logic. He didn't just want to win. He wanted to be seen winning. He wanted admiration, fear, control. And in reaching for everything, he lost the only thing that had protected Jim invisibility. Emotionally, Baelish's story is a lesson in the dangers of unchecked ambition. He rose from nothing, yes, but he rose alone. He made no real allies, only tools. And tools don't mourn you when you break. There were no armies defending him, no noble house demanding justice. When his throat was cut by Arya Stark, it wasn't just the death of a man, it was the end of a strategy. His last words were desperation, not manipulation. The mask fell. The game was over. Logically, Petyr Baelish's model of power was one of the most efficient in Westeros. He used limited resources to maximum effect. He understood timing, influence, and the fragile egos of the great houses. But his system was not built to last. It was designed to climb, but not to sustain. And in the end, even the best game collapses when the board evolves. So what can we learn from Littlefinger? That chaos is a ladder, but it's also a trap. That intelligence without trust is hollow. That secrets may win battles, but they rarely win peace. Baelish was a master of the moment, but he never planned for the world after he won.